My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska. My mission, as always, is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching in real estate. And today, we're going to be talking about one of the largest markets in this entire state of Alaska, and that is Anchorage. And we're going to be looking at the single family, the condo, and the multifamily market. Before we do that, though, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's market update, looking first at the single family residential market. Now, the first thing we see is that the number of properties available on the market has actually seen an uptick compared to this time last year. This time last year, when we had all the data available for the month of August, we see that there were about 331 properties available on the market, and this year it's about 411. So we are seeing a bit of an uptick for the number of properties available, but usually around this time of year, we would see closer to about 900 to 1,000. So we're still a long ways off, but that's still a step in the right direction, though, if you're wanting to see more inventory. The next thing we see is that the number of properties that have actually sold for this time period actually went from about 230 this time last year to about 250 this year. So we are also seeing a bit of an increase in the number of properties that are actually selling as well and closing, which, that's good. So that does mean that inventory is going up, but also the demand is remaining about the same. So we are seeing, I guess the demand would actually go up slightly just because we are seeing more properties sell. Next thing we see is that the average sold price in Anchorage for this year to date went from about $480,000 this time last year to about $513,000 this year. So that's a pretty healthy increase. That's over $30,000 compared to the year before. And it's not particularly surprising. I think a lot of people are finally just kind of accepting the fact that, hey, the market's not going to crash anytime soon. We got to jump in here. And we've seen a recent drop in the interest rates. And so people are kind of warming up to the idea of kind of jumping back into the market. And it's also just Alaska during the end of the summer. So we are going to see that bump in prices because a lot of the properties that went under contract earlier in the summer are now closing. And earlier in the summer is when the market is going to be most competitive. So it's not a big surprise. Now, the next thing we're seeing is the number of condos available on the market went from about 84 this time last year to about 124 this year. So that also is kind of a big step in the right direction, that we are seeing some increase in the condos that are available, because there haven't been a whole lot of cheaper, affordable housing options available. It used to be actually that there is an absolute glut of inventory in Anchorage, and that is just not the case anymore, because usually around this time of year, we would see inventory right around like 450, even pushing closer to about 500. So the fact that we're at about 124, 130, that kind of gives you an idea of just how far we've fallen. And, it's still a step in the right direction. That we went from about 80 something to about 124 this year, but you can see that there's definitely a long ways to go. The next thing we see is the number of condos that have actually sold for the month of August, the month we have the most complete information for, went from 85 this time last year to 84 this year. So not really that big of a difference one way or the other. So that's really just kind of says that the demand for condos has remained pretty steady. Now, looking at the average sold price year to date, we see that this time last year, the average sold price for condos was about $270,000. And this year, it's about $280,000, which means we're seeing about 3% and some change, if I recall correctly, on what the average sold price is doing, which this is kind of a good, healthy, predictable place to be. We don't want to see big spikes going one way or the other, because that not great conditions long-term for a market to be in if there's suddenly big spikes one way or the other. So I'm pretty happy to see kind of this nice, steady 3.5-4% increase for the appreciation for prices in Anchorage. So it went up by about 3 or 4%, and we've seen like double-digit increase for the average sold price and in recent years. Like this time last year, let's see, it was about $270, and the year before that, it was about $243,000. So you can see there's definitely been some drastic increases in the average sold price for condos in Anchorage. Not really expecting that to go anywhere soon. All right, let's go and take a break real quick. For those of you who have been watching for a bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, and I interview people who've recently moved up here or people who've lived up here for a number of years. So if that would, and kind of talk about their experience, what they think about Alaska, their tips and tricks and all that good stuff for moving up here. So if that's something that would benefit you, do make sure you go check that out in the description section down below. Now let's go and finish up today's market update, looking at the multifamily market. Now looking at the multifamily market, we see that this time last year, there were 92 multifamily properties available, and this year there are 97. So not a whole lot of change one way or the other. That's still an increase from what we've seen in the past previous years, because a couple of years ago, we were seeing about 77 homes available. So, 20 unit increase, that's decent, but also keep in mind, usually around this time of year, we'd see about 230 to about, 240 multifamily properties available. So we're still a long ways off, but, like I've said before in the other asset classes, still a step in the right direction. All right, now what we're seeing next is how many multifamily properties are actually selling. Well, this time last year, there were 31 properties that sold for the month of August, and this year for the month of August, there are 28. So slight decrease in the number of multifamily properties that are selling. Nothing really to write home about. Usually around this time of year, we would, even before COVID, we'd see about 30 to about 36 in the high end. So 28 is actually pretty close, kind of par for the course. All right, now the next thing we're going to look at here, and I'm going to present it, and then we're going to diffuse it a little bit. So the average sold price for multifamily properties went from about $501,000 year-to-date last year to about $560,000 year-to-date this year. Now, let's calm down a little bit. I'm not saying the average sold price increased by about $60,000 for every single multifamily property in Anchorage. The thing you have to keep in mind is Anchorage is going to be pretty heavy on multifamily, which means that we're going to see some larger properties get thrown in there that are like the big 30, 40, 50-plex properties. And obviously, if one of those sell, it throws off all the averages here, because multifamily includes everything from the little duplex all the way up to that big commercial property that I just mentioned. So we're going to see some big fluctuations in the sold price for properties that we probably wouldn't see in other asset classes, or see it as pronounced as we would see in other asset classes. But this is just a good idea that, yes, average sold price for multifamily properties are going up in Anchorage, and I wouldn't expect it to go up by $50,000, but it's still gone up at a pretty healthy margin. You just have to make sure that whatever the landlord is asking is actually going to make sense and can pencil out. So this has been your market update. Kind of the big takeaways that I'm seeing here. If you're a buyer, it's not a really good idea to wait on the fence. If you're waiting for the market to crash, I'm not really expecting the market to crash anytime soon based off the data that I'm seeing. You're a seller and you need to make a move happen, this is a pretty good market for you to be jumping into. So by all means, feel free to jump in here and let's see if we can make something happen. It's not the market that we had in 2020 and 2021, but as long as you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to ask the price the market is showing that it's actually going to bear, then we are still seeing multiple offer situations and we're still able to get property under contract with good terms. We just have to make sure we're not asking for too much. So this has, again, been your market update for Anchorage. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.